let's embrace being disgusting by someone's standards. Like,
Of
it's
course.
gorgeous by ours. And that, like, blew my mind. I had never seen anyone approach it like that. I wanted to be more like that.
Good evening. I'm David Leonard. I am president of the Boston Public Library, and welcome to your library. In preparing to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the nation next year, the library decided we would tell stories through the lens of revolution and resistance, and also knowing that the story is also about promises of rights yet to be fully realized throughout our 249-year history as a country. For this calendar year, our specific narrative lens is the theme of revolutionary art, with our very own spin on what that may mean. These stories are more important than ever today, and while there are those who would turn back history or stop progress in its tracks, the BPL's mission, 177 years old, the first large municipally funded library in the country, is one of free to all, the phrase engraved in stone on the front of the building, with equal emphasis on both free and all. And so, our duty is to uplift the stories of all communities, with no one to be excluded from the vast resources and opportunities that we steward as an institution. Because public libraries today, in every community across the nation, are living proof that the concepts of equity, diversity, and inclusion can, do, and must work to build stronger communities. So I'm actually thrilled tonight to be able to yield the moderator's role to a friend and colleague who leads their own organization here in Boston. And she's already providing much broader leadership, not just here in Boston, but to the arts and culture sector regionally. That is to Giselle Byrd, Executive Director of the Theater Offensive, an organization I am proud to have been involved with for over 30 years on and off. She is the first Black trans woman to lead a regional theater company in the United States. Where she is passionately continuing and amplifying the theater's mission for elevating the work of queer and transgender artists of color and our LGBTQIA Two-Spirit plus youth and their allies. Now, our keynote guest speaker, no stranger to all of you present and watching online. This is, after all, who you are here for. Sasha Velour is winner of RuPaul's Drag Race and co-host of HBO's We're Here, especially relevant to this venue tonight. In addition to being an accomplished performer, she is also a best-selling author with her first book, The Big Reveal, an illustrated manifesto of drag. It explores the history and philosophy of drag through personal stories. And as a visual artist and cartoonist, she has a Google Doodle as well as a cover for The New Yorker to her name. So, without further ado, please give a big BPL welcome. Welcome to the stage, Giselle Byrd and Sasha Velour.
Y'all are in for the treat of your lives, of the decade, of the century. This is the second coming, y'all. At least for me.
Okay, not too much, not too much. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. So excited to be talking with you, Giselle. Truly, everything that was said, you are a legend doing for art and for the city what needs to be done.
And I echo that back to you, my
Thank
sister.
you.
Thank you. Well, I know they keep the dolls on a clock, so
Yes, they do.
let's get into it, shall we? So a quick little check-in before we dive into the
The heavy stuff.
heavy stuff, because
Okay.
we're going to get there. So y'all are flies on the wall.
Mm.
I will swat you. What animated character comes close to embodying who you are?
Oh. Oh, I mean, like, I feel like there's a touch of Pink Panther today.
I mean,
Technically a criminal.
we love a criminal.
Often the only one who actually knows what's going on, but you'd never know.
Exactly.
Yeah. And bright pink, impractically colored at all times.
I mean,
How about you?
ooh, for me, it's a tie between a couple. It's a little Princess Tiana meets Jessica Rabbit meets Sleeping Beauty meets Sailor Moon.
I love it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That hype
I see
gave
it.
it away.
I see it all.
Thank you. Well, thank you for indulging me. Because those characters really do raise us in a way
Yeah.
than I think a lot of us forget. The theme of this series is around revolutionary art, and we must acknowledge that drag is a sacred and revolutionary art form. So it's not only a portal to our liberation, but it's also an educational tool. Yes, y'all snap for that, because education, we are losing money towards our education. So drag is one of which we have seen be attacked over the years. And as we, the people, work to combat the literacy crisis in this country. Now, according to studies by the National Literacy Institute just last year, in 2024, 21% of American adults are illiterate. In that same year, according to the National Assessment of Educational Progress, 69% of US fourth graders scored below proficient in reading. So let me be very clear, y'all, when I say this. Drag story hours across this country are essential for our youth. I mean,
Love that.
period. Like, they're essential.
Anything that makes people excited about reading and learning new things.
Right. Baby, you teach me how to read, my color scheme. See, a whole pre-K education.
Please don't book me for drag story hour, though. I don't like getting painted that early in the day, but there's many people who would love to.
Exactly. You can do drag story hour after dark.
Of the yes.
Yes.
For the illiterate adults. Yes.
There we have it. You are a leading voice in this charge by not only being an award-winning drag artist, but among many other titles you hold, they include filmmaker, visual artist, author of 5 published works, from zines and history comics to your most recent book, The Big Reveal, an illustrated manifesto of drag, all of which are a powerful testament and reminder of the contributions of our queer and trans artists that they have provided for centuries on end. Y'all, we have defined culture. So let us not forget that. In order for you to get to this place, it called for liberation. And that looks different for everybody. We know that. And it does not happen overnight, as much as we would wish it could. And each of us goes through a revolution towards that special place, and we don't go through it alone. So I want to start at the beginning. You had an upbringing that encouraged your love for transforming and performance, very similar to me back in Augusta, Georgia. And it's sadly rare for our siblings of queer and trans and gender diverse experience. So I would like to kick us off. Can you share with us, or just us because y'all are flies, what that affirmation and support of family meant and how it contributed to your self-expression?
Oh, I love that, because without that supportive family at that very core vulnerable time in your life, I don't know that it would have been possible for me, at least, to take so many risks. I think my family, my grandma went to see drag in the 60s at Finocchio's. She's from San Francisco and went to
Ooh, come on,
the female
Granny.
impersonator shows, and she was an immigrant.
Yeah.
A Jewish community in China was where she was born and escaped the war. So she knew real hardship, and
course.
drag was nothing to be afraid of to her.
Right.
Queer people that were everywhere in San Francisco in the 70s
course.
was home and made her feel like she could be a star too. She dreamed of being an actress, and it didn't work out, but anyone who comes to a drag show gets to be a superstar for one night.
Exactly. And you're carrying her legacy. You are giving her.
Hope so.
You are.
I do feel, not to be immediately very woo-woo about it, but I do feel like my ancestors, my grandma, my mom, who are no longer with us, like carried on through my drag. I mean, my mom would have, I always say this, she would definitely hate this outfit, but that's my own way of carrying her on, because we did argue a lot. But I think my parents just had their own, like, they loved culture.
Right.
And to really love culture, you have to be cool with queer and trans people, because we're deeply invested in making it, just like, there's many different groups that are part of it. So I got introduced to Some Like It Hot and to film and cinema and all kinds of reference points that I could cling on to later. But it wasn't like immediately I'm comfortable being queer, I'm comfortable being gender expansive. I still had so much internalized shame just from watching TV, from going to school, from talking to other kids. And so I think in my adulthood, coming back to all these bright colors and to this fuller sense of self, for me, it was like a return to that inner child, that kind of freedom that in the small community of my living room felt possible, and then the world didn't seem to have space for. And I want to make sure we change that about the world. And I know, there's parents here in the audience. There's people who are gonna continue making more openness. I think we were talking about this a little bit backstage, but I do feel people are so scared, but I think we've come such a long way. I know there's this incredible pushback that we have to fight back against, but that pushback is like a dying worldview that we all grew up with. And so much has changed. There's so much more knowledge. And knowledge should be free to everyone. And the knowledge is that queer and trans people are real, and we're here to stay, and we enrich the world.
Exactly. Amen. Amen. I love you mentioning the childhood living room, because do y'all feel that way, that the childhood living room was really that space where you got to do your thing? Your Barbies had the most controversial plot lines. At least mine did. It would be like the wedding day, and then she doesn't show up, and then the other. I love a runaway bride.
Wow, I wasn't allowed to have Barbies because my parents were really anti-capitalism. And my mom was that flavor of feminist, which is why, I don't think she'd be into this. But we entertained an American Girl doll for a time.
Okay. Okay.
They're
American
all
Girl.
lesbians. Yeah.
They really are giving you the butch fantasy.
Yeah, which I'm still into to this day. So.
I guess we were a very capitalist household with my My Little Pony wedding chapel. But you know what?
Oh my god.
Baby, you can tell me that those weddings were it.
They were.
No.
The fantasy.
The fantasy was very real. And there's something just so innocent and pure about being able to return to that space, to be able to just live and breathe freely. And I think as we grow up, we start kind of hushing ourselves.
Right.
It's really upsetting. We start this self-censorship that we have to stop doing. And it's like the moment I woke up and said, who is this helping?
Right.
It's not helping me, so why am I doing it for other people? You have to just free yourself. And that, I'm so glad that you did. And I'm so glad that you had, people in your life who supported that. Because it's like, I tell people, like, my transition was a Cinderella story. I wanted to go to the ball, which was to be the woman that I am. And everyone said, then let's make you go.
Oh,
Let's help you.
right.
And it's so beautiful that you've had that same sort of upbringing and that same sort of path. And I know it's all different, but it's a blessing that you've been able to return and live authentically.
And I know it's often like faced with some darkness or some, for me, it was remembering the fragility of life that made me realize there was no, exactly what you say, like, who is this self-censorship helping?
Right.
Maybe I'm protecting myself from a little bit of hurt out in the world, but is that really more painful than not living as myself at all, or not taking any risks whatsoever because I'm so afraid? No, I didn't want to live like that.
Right.
For me, such a big turning point was, I mean, I talked about this on Drag Race and in my book, but facing an eating disorder. And I think how that hiding of the self became tied to something I was literally doing to my body, trying to disappear, trying not to take up space or be heard or seen, which ultimately just kind of drew more attention, but a very negative kind. And then when my mom realized that she was going to pass away within a couple years, it was like, it was just such a shock. Life is so fragile, and everyone deserves to take whatever amount of life we get and have autonomy and freedom and write a story for ourselves that makes sense. My mom started traveling, and she dyed her hair, and she cut it really short, and she tried all these things she had talked about for so long. And I felt like, oh, I should do the same. I should learn from my hero and live a bolder life myself. And for me, that meant getting into drag. This thing I had thought I had invented as a little kid and slowly discovered there was more of out there in the world, thank God. Because what I had invented was hideous, and the reference points really taught me a lot for what I could be doing.
Amen for a reference.
Yes. There's like 3 for me that I want to share.
Yeah.
One was watching all of John Waters' movies.
Oh my God. Yes.
And another, well, just seeing that, like, everything I felt I should feel shame about myself, there was like celebration as a source of pride in those movies, and a kind of like, fuck the system, punk, like,
Of course.
who cares what people are going to say? Let's embrace being disgusting by someone's standards. Like, it's gorgeous by ours. And that like blew my mind. I had never seen anyone approach it like that. I wanted to be more like that. And then, I said 3, but I can only think of 2 right now. The other is reading Sylvia Rivera's account of the Stonewall Uprising. There's like a 3-page essay in Leslie Feinberg's book, Transliberation. And I went to Blue Stockings in New York. It's my like bookstore, radical bookstore, and bought this book that just said like trans in really huge letters on the spine. So we all know what that's about. I'd be like, this is speaking to me. I really knew nothing at that time. And that story of like, she really explicitly says drag queens started the Stonewall Uprising. This group that had fought for every civil rights organization for a decade, but then had been pushed to the side and not allowed to be visible on the front lines, said, now is our turn to have liberation too. And then I've since discovered that maybe it was fictional, and she may have like slept through the riots, but she told such a good story about it and centered the queer people and the queer and trans people of color that were getting written out of the story almost immediately.
Precisely.
And that made me want to be a drag queen, not just as like an indulgence of my own gender, but like as a mission to be visible, to be loud, to stand up for liberation for all people.
Oh, I thought you just wanted to go places and throw bricks.
I mean, that too. That too. I mean, trash cans, in fact. Yes. It really escalated that night.
No, they really did. It was so funny. Earlier today, I was at a conversation at the Boston Foundation, and one of our iconic community organizers, who's an elder, Paul Glass, was at Stonewall. And his account of Stonewall, if you ever meet Paul Glass or in the same room with him, he said it today. He was like, it was the drag queens and trans women who really got that thing going. And he said, we owe them an incredible debt because they have taken the brunt of what harm our community has faced. And it's just so powerful to hear his testimony, but then to hear that of Reverend Irene Monroe, who's another Massachusetts entity who was a preteen at the Stonewall riots, telling her story. And then Charles Evans, Paul's husband, I consider them my daddies, to hear his account. All three of these people were there. And they continuously talk about how it was those drag queens and those trans women who were out there fighting. And to me, that was also an inspiration to know they said, we will not be silenced. And Audre Lorde said it, your silence will not protect you. And that is something I'm so grateful that I think, especially in this moment, we are reminding ourselves. The ancestors and transcestors gave us a roadmap. Sylvia may have been taking a nap, but she gave us a roadmap.
The roadmap. And in a way, like a revolutionary act like that, it's totally not planned. The planning all comes after, once you figure out how you're going to tell this story, how you're going to use this to fuel future change, how you're going to create a movement that continues to center trans lives and existence and equality. It sounds like they were having fun in a way. I mean, as much fun as you can have while being arrested.
I mean,
but let that be a lesson. It's like they were doing a kick line and making up a rhyme and enjoying destroying the bar that had kind of oppressed them and excluded them at the same time as they're resisting the police. And I feel like that's the message of revolutionary art that I want to take. It's you're standing up in the face of an immediate injustice and turning into this act of joy that reminds people what life is, what we're all about.
Exactly.
And then you organize later, the next day.
Right. Then you send out your emails and you're like, okay, so who's going to bring the water bottles?
What did we do last night? Let's turn that into something.
Right. Let's make some money from that. And,
oh, God.
and rebuild a better world. And so you really stepped into those inciting incidents for your liberation. Because Angelica Ross, we were talking before, Angelica Ross had told me that every trans person goes through this inciting moment where they have to choose their why, and they have to choose what comes after. And she said sometimes for our siblings, we will choose to not be here. But she said for those who do, we really start interrogating our why. And so I'm curious, for you, what was, one of those additional, inciting incidents? Because I know there are so many. For me, it was doing drag in college, and I was like, Giselle is not a drag persona. Giselle is actually the doll, and that's who she is. But I would love to hear more.
I remember... Well, I finally remembered what my third reference point was.
I was going to bring you back.
How dare I forget, because it was watching season 1 of RuPaul's Drag Race. Back on Logo in the old days.
Oh my God.
And
Logo.
It blew my mind.
Yes.
And then going to see drag in my hometown. Seeing that this was a rare, inclusive artistic event that people from all different backgrounds were taking part in and living for and connecting to. I had been living my hoity-toity art and theater world, and those are very closed worlds often.
Oh yeah.
And so to see art that was just speaking to people, that's what I always dreamed of. Yeah, Drag Race, to think that I would have that as my path as well. I could never have dreamed. But I immediately went out and wanted to buy a wig after seeing Drag Race, after watching John Waters.
Yes.
I was like, I don't know what this is, but I need to like buy some lipstick and a wig.
Right.
And so I walked to this wig store I was
Mhm.
living in Poughkeepsie at the time in
Okay.
college.
Mhm.
And I walked to a wig store downtown
Mhm.
and it was like empty. There was one
Oh,
woman shopping there, an older woman, and she kind
okay.
of like ignored me. I walked to the back and was like, I was so nervous. I was like dripping sweat. Like,
Uh,
I'm looking for a wig. I don't even think I got a lace front. I was like, I'm just in a hard front kind of
listen,
bracket
the early
economic
wig
moment.
days, a hard front is essential. That is a rite of passage.
They
You
were
must do
better
a
back then
hard.
too. Yes. I
Yes.
started with a hard front. I said, can you just help me find something flattering?
Mhm.
And she like immediately looked at me and I wasn't sure what she was gonna say. She was
Mhm.
like, okay, see, we have longer chins and we need layers around the face. So she and that
Oh my God.
that like kindness, that inclusion, that was like the ushering in. After all the gatekeeping of art, this was a gate opening into the world of
Yes.
beauty, and I realized that's what we're all about.
Yes.
And so I tried it on. I had to buy the wig cap, of course, always.
50 cents.
Tried it on. It was $1.
Not the inflated,
Yeah, I guess
right?
it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't in the active inclusion I thought.
Well, I
No,
forget. I was
it's
in the
fine.
South where it's all cheaper.
So I tried it on and I purchased it. I did a little like immediately was feeling
Oh,
it.
of course.
The one woman who was there told me, she was gagged. She was like, "You look like Diana Ross." Yeah. So I don't know what I was giving that day.
Baby.
But I would like walked home singing The Boss.
I know
And
that's right.
but then when I got home, I realized that I felt cuter with like a bandana tied around my hair. That I wasn't like maybe the long hair. Maybe I just wasn't the long-haired goddess yet. That may still
Right.
be in my future, but at the time,
Right. You
and
weren't
for a
ready for the
while,
bundle.
I wasn't ready for the bundle.
bundle.
I needed like a socialist bandana for factory work. But maybe that's just the kind of girl I am. I don't know.
And you know what? And that's fine.
Yeah.
And that is fine.
There's so many different flavors of beauty.
Exactly. Exactly. I love that there's so much gender affirmation in a beauty supply store. You don't even know.
Yeah.
Like, do y'all know what I mean? Like, if you go into like the right one,
Yes.
you have that whole team of people who is just like waiting for
Yeah.
you. I mean, I felt that way when I had come out as trans, and my mama's first response was, "Why didn't you tell us before Christmas? We would have gotten you girl clothes."
Oh my God.
And she had bought me like the whole Express Men's winter collection. So on Christmas, I was opening up everything and I was like, fuck. And so she's like, now I've got to find the receipt. And if you met my mama, Cynthia, y'all would know she cannot keep a receipt. But she miraculously found it, FedExed it to me. And me and some friends went to Express, RIP, because they're like closing. But anyways, and I was like, I'm returning all of this stuff. And the guy was like, what are we going for? And it was that season of Scandal where Kerry Washington just wore a lot of nudes and pinks.
Hot.
And I, too, wanted to be Olivia Pope. So, minus like the presidential affair.
Right.
But
Wow.
I was like, this is it. And we just did this whole transition of wardrobe that was so powerful. And it was that whole sales team that made me feel so affirmed. So I love that we can find these pockets of affirmation in our daily lives, whether it's in a beauty supply store or an RIP Express or even a grocery store. I was in Star Market and this woman was like, girl, I don't know where you're going, but you're it. And I was like, thank you. I was like, thank you.
I love that.
So
yeah, we found the Home Depot in Brooklyn really is quite friendly to the dolls. So if anyone is curious, you never know
I know
where you'll
that
find
Home
a welcoming.
Depot.
You know
I
it.
do know that Home Depot. Stepping into the art of drag, you know, it's not for the weak.
Mm-mm.
And I firmly believe it's something everyone should try once, just one time, just once. And what's so powerful about it is that it allows us to disrupt convention. And like you said, a socialist bandana is what you want. I'm like, I need a full bundle lace front, 24 plus inches. And I love the dualities here. But many of us go to places of higher education. This is for my college kids here and online. We go to a place of higher education that want us to become products of a broken system. And it's difficult to create a new path. So with your art, how do you remind yourself to keep carving your own highway? Because it's not a lane, boo. You got the whole expressway. So like how do you remind yourself?
Oh my gosh. I love that thought because I do feel like people turn to drag in particular because these other institutions of art, whether it be higher education or theater or visual art, fashion, have so many obstacles.
Of course.
And so either like people like us can't access it for whatever reason,
Absolutely.
or there's not enough freedom there to feel like artistically satisfying. And so drag has that capacity to instantly make something. We use our bodies and sometimes really over the top clothing that we find other times, but you can do it with like literally a nightgown. And you can tell a whole story with drag. And so I love that it's this art form for people who have something to say and aren't afraid to put themselves on the line to do it.
Exactly.
So I feel like as long as I'm staying true to that, I have some drag friends and family in the audience tonight that have inspired me. I think about like Neon Calypso, who I know we both know is here. Yes.
Stand up, Neon.
Yes,
Stand
Neon.
on up.
And like, well, Neon is like my introduction, my entire world reference point for Boston drag, and really for good drag most of the time. And I feel like that's just what it's about. Like, we've talked about this a million times. You see that opportunity at a club to get on stage, and you say, well, I have something to show on stage. Like, let me sign myself up. And that's the birth of a drag performer. And it's beyond like whether this is a step in your gender journey or if it's an outlet for something, it is like, it's a platform. And platforms are so few and far between when it comes to the art world. And then I think Lahore Vagistan is here as well.
Ooh, stand up.
Professor Kareem Kupchandani.
Yes.
Yes.
Stand up.
I wrote my book about drag. She wrote the best book about drag, Decolonizing Drag, that I highly recommend everyone read.
Love it.
But there really are not that many drag performers in higher education. There are not that many drag performers in institutions of theater, like we've talked about. I don't know why that is, because I feel like we're all doing the same thing. So maybe we'll slowly work on changing that. I know what you're doing, the work. I'm trying as well. But yeah, I think. And how do you then enter those spaces? These are questions I'm still trying to figure out. How do you enter those spaces and try to not then just become part of that system that excludes people or isn't as accessible to the wide audience that drag can reach?
Yes.
So I don't know if anyone has answers on that in the Q&A, please let me know. But I do think like, take yourself as the reference point. I don't know if that sounds
that's
delusional, but I guess that's appropriate for drag. It's like, I don't need to follow like how anyone else would do it other than myself.
Yeah, that's not delusional.
It got me here.
Right. Baby, that's not delusion, that's reality.
Yeah.
That is your truth and that is your reality. And I think we need to speak that into real power because people forget how bold we are when we really defy convention.
Yes.
And, I was in school, college, but they were trying to make me the black gay Kurt Hummel. Well, the black Kurt Hummel. And, and that just was not it, clearly. So I sometimes wonder what it would look like if I were to go back to college and do a whole BFA as a trans woman, because they probably would not know what to do.
Right.
Well,
I hope that will continue to be possible for people, and that
I
like
do as well.
it won't. I feel like I started so late figuring out what the hell I was doing. Maybe we all have our journeys. It's never too late.
Exactly. That was very Mama Rose of you. I was born too soon and started too late. As we're creating our own pathways, we're also living in a time where the art form, amongst many areas of our lives, is being targeted by an administration that claims there are only two genders. Why do you think there is this fetishization of our autonomy? Because, girl, I sit here and I think about it often, and I'm like, what do you really want out of this?
Right.
What is your end game?
Right. We this is like the new thing that we're asking at my nightgowns show in New York. It's like, we get why we're obsessed with our rights and freedoms. Why are you so obsessed with us?
Right.
It's like less than 1% of the population.
You're right.
Interesting, we were talking about the free to all, the outside of the library says. That is so powerful. And speaking of like that, the knowledge of our existence, that I question whether that was free to me as a young person. I think we're trying to make it that way.
Right.
I think that's what people are afraid of and fighting back against, is having that knowledge accessible to everyone. With the internet and the availability of everything, I don't know that knowledge really is free in that way yet. I was in DC, and the beautiful historic public library that says free for all is an Apple store now. And doesn't that just say it all?
Yeah.
Because there are, to access the internet, to access knowledge, there's all these things you have to go through, all these thousands of dollars you have to pay to get the device, and you get your plan together. And then it's still like, how do you even find truth online when there's so much misinformation? Correct. So I like our queer spaces where we have these traditions of like telling each other, and there's misinformation and bad advice aplenty, just like in any other community. But also I think there's the experience. There's saying like, okay, if you want to try drag, here, try this thing, do this with your makeup. Did you check out this product? If you are interested in transitioning or exploring that, like, make sure you ask yourself this, go to this doctor. And that's the kind of free to all mentality that I think we're all about.
Yes.
And I maybe there's a world down the line where we can share that with an even broader group outside the dressing rooms. But that's the standard of freedom that I live by.
No, amen. And I think when we finally wake up and divest from a system that is trying to destroy us, we can really be liberated. Right. And I think on top of that, that free access to knowledge is so scary for some.
Right.
Because to me, and I've said it, I've often felt that the most terrifying person to them is a liberated person, because they don't know what that feels like. They don't know how to wake up and be unapologetic and be who they really are. Yeah. So when they see us in that notion of unapologetically Black or trans or whatever, that terrifies them, that they had no say in that. Right. And that's white supremacy at work. That's capitalism at work. That's the patriarchy. That's all of it.
The paternalistic attitude of like, you won't be able to make a good decision for yourself with this information. So like, we need to control what you're allowed to access.
Exactly.
That's just not the time and time again. It's proven that that's not the case. People make better decisions for themselves than you can make for them. So back off.
Exactly.
J.K. Rowling. No, just like.
Yes. And if y'all keep buying her books, I swear. or support her limited series. I need y'all to have the same angry energy about that as y'all did with the Sex and the City reboot. Anyway, they fought to get Che Diaz off that show. That is literally queer erasure. Anyway. Anywho.
Yes, let queer people be bad comedians. It is, I love a queer villain.
I do too.
We exist.
My first queer villain was him from the Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah, hello.
Oh my God, I'm him with the...
No.
Another character reference for me. We are too beautifully free, and they can't handle that. And so with all of this unrest in the world, it's often said that rest is resistance. And as a public figure, many folks only see what happens publicly, which is usually us doing this and being our bold, beautiful selves. And then we get home and we lock the door behind us, which is sometimes the best part. How are you practicing self-care? Or what are you learning you need to do to access it? Because it's not that easy, because Lord knows I don't know it at all. Me and her are not friends, sadly.
And like some of us maybe thrive off of not having time for self-care and just kind of going and going and going. And there's a way in which you're like, I feel this sometimes, my life is so short and I don't want to have a list of shoulda, coulda, wouldas. So let me just do everything.
Right.
But then you're doing it less than. And that's certainly not what I was dreaming of.
Yeah.
I've learned for me that being alone is really important. I think a lot of surprisingly numbers of like drag performers are kind of like have a private side too. And I had such a lonely childhood. I feel like to tap into the core of my fantasy world, the way I see the world that ends up in my art, I have to like pull back and be completely alone.
Very Norma Desmond.
But right. Well, hopefully a little bit friendlier, a little less dire, but the difference is like to have community now and to go and see things and be nourished by friends and by like other drag artists, other queer artists, just art that's out there, and then take that and kind of marinate on it in my garden. That's my fantasy for myself, is to care for my garden. Right now I have like my partner Johnny and I have a tiny little patch of yard in Brooklyn that our dog pees on, but I do try to nourish a couple. We've grown like 3 trees there, little evergreens.
Amazing.
They're very low maintenance.
Come on.
Yes,
Restoring
contributing.
The tree
Yes, contributing to nature, while destroying it with my clothes. It's a give and take. Yeah, that time to me is sacred. Like envisioning what I want to say or who I want to be or what kind of gesture I think the world needs. And then like making it with my own 2 hands, with my community, with urgency.
Amen.
And not being too fussy about things, because life is short and we do have to get back out there.
Exactly.
That's the cycle. What is it for you? What's your your rest?
It's cooking and baking for the people I love, because that's what my granny did back in Augusta. That was her thing. People who she didn't even know, making a meal for them. And that's that act of care and love that makes me happy. And I now have a little 6-month-old Yorkie, and that brings me so much
I love
joy. She's angry right now because I spayed her. I listened to Bob Barker.
Yes.
I controlled the pet population.
Spay and neuter your pets.
But she is the baby, and she knows that she is. So she's giving me some self-care, reminding me of who I do things for.
I love it. Animals are so pure.
Yes.
I was thinking that my dog is the antithesis of camp, because he has no self-awareness whatsoever. And it's just so pure.
It is.
So I think we all need that.
Yeah. My little girl doesn't like to walk outside on the streets because she's that girl. But she sees a man running, and then there she goes.
Wow, she is that girl.
She is that girl. Maybe she will learn one day, like her mama did. Anyways, speaking of people running around the streets and community building, I want to open it up to this community of people who ran over here to get their seats and see you be in your full glory. Turn up the lights to the people in the dark.
Oh, hello. Hi, gorgeous people. How are you?
Hi. Look at this.
Stand up. Hi there. My name is Matisse. I'm with the History Project, which is Boston's queer community archive.
Yes, Matisse. Hello.
Plug. Anyways, I think that you are a wonderful expert in the world of drag. You're very so knowledgeable and wonderful and studied. And so I've just been thinking this whole time, like, what is your thesis on like the revolutionary aspect of drag? How is it revolutionary art? And I was thinking, have you ever seen those videos where it's like an expert explains it at 3 levels to like a child? And then like, I was like, how would you explain it to like the illiterate adults you're going to read children's books to like our friends over here who are like gender scholars? Like, are there, I don't know, how would you, I don't know. Maybe that's too much. But anyways, thanks.
Okay, I love that. Absolutely.
Thank you, Matisse.
I do like the RuPaulism of every time I bat my eyelash, it's a political act, because in some ways just looking like this, just being who we are, being visible and loud, taking up space is political. Not necessarily in the intent, but in the reception, because when people don't want you to exist and have politicized your very existence, then just living becomes revolution. But to me, I think the deeper level is this historic one of how this art form, with all of its beauty and silliness and camp, has become a stage for discussing revolutionary ideas, for putting trans liberation into language, and then into the streets, and then into like daily political work. That came from people being loud on microphones, on bullhorns, on stages where drag performers were invited, and maybe they did their song and their dance, and then they turned it into something more. And I think that's like, I don't want to lose that at all in drag. But it's not a given. We have to fight to make that part of the revolutionary aspect alive and well.
Amen, sister.
My name is Kim.
Hey, Kim.
I wanted to share with you that I just spoke with a school close by that has a drag club at their high school. And so that's the impact of both of your work and all of us showing up for each other. And so I wanted to ask about all the different ways that people access drag, and if you have any thoughts on how we can help people access drag outside of nightlife, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Hell yes to the drag club.
I love the drag club. That's amazing.
On
What age group? High school?
school.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's
we had a
amazing.
cross-dressing day in my high school.
No shade to the
It was
cross-dressers.
the 2000s. Yes, I wore a corset for the first time over like cargo pants.
Oh, that's class.
It was very affirming. I really do think that YouTube is the best like source right now for discovering drag performance, which to me is like drag performance in a bar is like the highest level of any art form to me. Just because it's like, it has urgency, it is inclusive and accessible. People take really big risks, and like the disaster and unpredictableness of like a one night only live show is just like, oh, the arts wish they were that exciting. But then I do want to bring that into more places, like so that people who are not 18 or 21, I don't know what age you're really supposed to get into a bar these days, can access it and can maybe even take part if they're interested. I love that Drag Race has become something that like families watch together. That is wild to me.
I used to watch it with my sister.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And like straight people, and it can be like an entry point for that. But yeah, we need other things too.
Yes. And I think promoting that drag club and
Yeah.
letting people know and using it again as an educational tool
Right.
is very helpful because think about Shakespeare's plays, Marlowe's plays. That's what was done.
Yeah.
Hi.
My name is Erica, and since we are at one of the happiest places in Boston, in my opinion, the Copley Library, I wanted to ask if there was a particular book or poem or even just form of written art that you think has helped how you view drag as a storytelling medium.
Ooh.
Mm.
Oh my gosh.
Come on, the literature.
Yes.
Come on, Erica.
I love that. Maybe not like drag specifically, although I definitely would list John Waters there as like my ultimate, and my drag name comes from a movie called Vegas in Space that is like a science fiction drag fantasy pulled off in the 90s by like a San Francisco group called Sluts A Go-Go that raised funds to have their whole science fiction epic. But you were asking about books specifically. Okay, anything.
Or poetry,
Poetry
literature.
and books. One of my favorite books of all time, I really like science fiction, I guess, is Bobble 17 by Samuel Delany. And just, it's about like trying to understand a language that doesn't have the same identity, and like this literally I think it's like pronouns and singularity and stuff doesn't translate across the borders of this language, and like how you would go about understanding a world that doesn't function with the self in the same way. And I do feel like that is such a queer question, and like I love posing possible solutions to different ways to have an identity and a self in this world through my drag. So I think about that one a lot.
Amazing.
Thank you for that question.
Hi, I'm Eden. I've been thinking a lot about higher education since you brought it up. I'm actually a PhD student in history, and I do some archaeology. And so something I think a lot about is bodily autonomy and the role of the body and identity, trying to understand how to methodologically approach that. And I think drag is something that obviously involves a lot of physicality and ownership of the body. So I was curious how you approach that from an identity perspective, but also through art form, in a way to try to better inform even my own methodological perspective.
Wow.
Ooh. Child, you brought the science.
Yeah.
Said arts and humanities.
Okay, I'm so fascinated. I have follow-up questions, but let me just try to, we'll keep talking. I mean, because so much of drag is about like concealing or transforming the body in permanent ways, but also
Yes.
in like very fleeting ways that maybe don't stay with us. But I love that the body in drag it's our stage, it's our tool, it's our platform. It's how we make noise and how we make gestures. Doing drag saved me when I was struggling with my body image, because to be able to have my body be like useful for my ideas and my fantasies instead of like just this like inert thing that my flesh prison. Rather, yes, it wasn't that anymore. It was like a leaping off place for becoming. And then like being in this community, I've seen how much like bodies really do change. Like, I mean, I've slowly gotten tattoos every year as I get older, and I love the way that like I feel like my body's becoming more beautiful as I get older, and there's nothing I'm losing. I'm gaining like all this ink and all this artwork. Wearing a corset every day of my life has like literally reshaped my body. I have like muscles from tightening them, and I have like thigh muscles from like I've been really doing a lot of squats and heels on stage. It's my favorite.
Do you
like,
do
group
the
number
hack
when everyone like, oh, let's see it.
Oh no, baby! I need the machine. I need the machine. but it's
yeah.
that's a good one.
Love the squats, but I like doing them literally like because I work out on stage in front of people. I feel like,
Yes,
so
you
it's
do.
like favorite group number is like everyone slowly squat to the ground and then bounce and then slowly get up, and then everyone has a bigger butt at the end, and you've like entertained people.
Right, and a bigger butt.
I don't feel
can
this has
save-
answered your question at all, but this is a little musing on it.
I mean, what you're getting at is that the body is the canvas.
Yeah.
And you build your drag around that canvas,
Right.
and the canvas forever changes. And I think that's a powerful act.
And it is so crucial, but I think we all would hate to be like reduced to it at the same time.
Yes.
It's so that's, I guess, the contradictory nature of being queer and making art.
Yes. And so to wrap us up, so thank y'all for those questions. Give yourselves a round of applause. So our guiding principles, we talked about this, are what we call the queer aesthetics, which really allow any space to examine what it means to bring queer and trans folks into the room to create. And each of them comes with their own set of values and questions. And one of them is lineage and time travel, the beautiful collision. And it's defined as follows. We remember who we come from. We honor the maps they forged for us through their magic, grief, revolts, triumph, and joy. In their name, we conjure our own magic for ourselves, for each other, and for the ones that will come after. We are the portal, and we are the destination. We are the prophets, and we are the destiny. This is our birthright. And so it asks this question, which is our last question for tonight. What do you want to leave behind through your work, and how do you want to be remembered?
Talk about the deep ones. I love that idea. Like that concept is so great. I'm working on a show right now. Sorry, I have a long answer. I'm working on my next show that I'm gonna debut in 2026.
Okay.
That is very much about like a queer history of a space, and like there's a little time travel component to it where you see the riots and the drag shows and the trauma and the joy and the resilience, all that has like characterized just one single spot of land that in this case is going to be a place that is becomes a theater eventually. And I feel like all of our cities, all of our worlds are full of these histories that we don't know even.
Yes.
But I had like a spiritual experience on tour. I got to perform my show Smoke and Mirrors, and then my second show, the Big Reveal live show, at the Folies Bergère in Paris. And like understanding that two of my drag idols, Barbette, who was an aerialist from Texas, who traveled the world, and Josephine Baker, who like did her own kind of drag and then was really involved in nourishing like the touring American drag scene, specifically the Jewel Box Review, and giving them her costumes and like spreading the word. They had both performed on that stage, and I literally got to look in the mirror that they put on the side of the stage just so Josephine Baker could do her quick changes in them. And just like I was thinking about them during the show, and I felt the stage is like a little raked, and I do a number for sorry if it's spoiled, but I did bring it to Boston already, so you missed it. I do a number where I'm like disguised as a chair, and so I'm on wheels, and then I pop out of it. But and I just felt like a little like kick and like a little push and just like a little like I was like, Josephine Baker and Barbette are gonna like push me off the stage right now. And I guess that's my way of saying I think about drag in that way, that we are in conversation with what's been before, and we're trying to honor them but also take that into our own context. And I guess I just want to be a ghost in a theater someday, giving the next generation their little swift kick to the ass.
Yes, we love a
Like,
kick.
you get it, girl, but like, don't forget about me.
And how could we? Sasha Velour, everybody.
Thank you, Giselle.
Goodness.